Hey, LinkedIn. My name is Stephen Farber, Vice President at Take Flight Learning. Joining me today is my friend Sean Litvak of the
What's going
best-selling
on?
author of Pro- best-selling author of Proverbs for Leadership. Sean, how are you today? Thank you for joining me.
I'm having a great day. I'm so excited to be here, Stephen. Thank you for inviting me on.
Awesome. I'm excited for you to be here as well. And a little bit of background, just very quickly, because I want to jump right into the value here of why I asked Sean to come on is we had an initial conversation just about things like self-awareness, how important that is to know yourself, especially when it comes to leading a team or coaching a team. It really any facet of life, even in your personal relationships, it's very important to have a good understanding of self-awareness. And so after talking with Sean and learning about his book, I said, you got to come on. We got to talk about this stuff. So, Sean,
Absolutely.
without further ado, I wanted to, if you'd like to go ahead and give a little bit of background on why you wrote the book and what went into that, I'd love to hear that as we start here.
Sure. So, what I actually began to write the book because I was not self aware whatsoever, and I thought I was smarter than everyone else. And therefore, I needed to write a book to explain to people how to conduct a business properly. It was originally going to be called Proverbs for Business. And I struggled with writing it for about 6 years until I prayed about what I should be doing. And the Lord told me, if you write this book, I will take care of everything 5 times over. And God started directing me as to how to write the book and what to write about. Because I had been approaching the book from a perspective of, y'all are doing everything wrong. This is how business should be conducted. And instead, I started looking at everything I had done wrong, every situation I had been in that I did not respond to properly, or every situation where I did not have personal awareness. And I started exploring those situations, and I came to the realization, which is the subtitle of the book: you must understand yourself and improve if you desire leadership that produces success in others. Or what I like to say is, it's all about you and it's not about you at all.
That's interesting because it sounds like a contradicting statement, but it's really not. And not to say something that's been said a lot, but with this month being Mental Health Awareness Month, something I hear a lot of is you can't pour from an empty cup. You got to know how to take care of yourself in order to best take care of others. So, kind of going along that same line of thinking, Sean, what does it mean to make it all about you so that it's not all about you? How would you define
You know, what an individual needs to do is they need to understand themselves. They need to take a cold, hard look in the mirror and look at how they engage with people, look at what their self talk is, look at how they are self sabotaging. And it's really interesting because in the world in which we live today, the word truth just seems to fluctuate back and forth. So I would tell people that the first thing that they need to do is they need to have a spiritual foundation. Now, I was raised Jewish. At one point, I was going to go to rabbinic school. But since that time in my life, I've become a Christian and a follower of Jesus Christ. And I look at the lordship of God, and that an individual truly, if they want to understand truth, I would encourage them to get into the Bible. Begin wherever you want. I think a great place is to start with the book of Proverbs, because that is the foundation of my book. But to get into the Bible and understand that we are just here for a limited amount of time, and really God is infinite, and people need to understand the unending truth that is before them, and then start measuring how they are living their life against that truth. And then they will begin to see improvement. And I could go on and on and on with that, but I'll pause.
that? Well, what I got from all of that, and that's an amazing story. And I know that we've talked offline about that personally. You know, let's talk about truth for a minute, especially when it comes to knowing ourselves. It sounds like we got to be a little more open-minded than is comfortable, so to speak. So when it comes to, for instance, in my own story, I kind of went into the world with some of the kind of the same background, just as, man, everybody's doing this wrong. I have to show them how to do it, and whatever it was that I was doing. At the same time, I also felt deeply inadequate and like, well, I'm probably not going to get it right anyway. So
Right.
it sounds like when you go on a journey like this, and you come to understand that there's a lot more to it than we realize, that's kind of what opens things up. So with that being said, Sean, I'd love to get an insight from you when it comes to knowing yourself. How does that translate directly to things? Let's just pull up a topic out of the air here. Let's just say if you're providing feedback to somebody, how important
Sure.
is it to know who you are to give good feedback to someone in a workplace setting?
And feedback used to be one of the topics that I hated the most. I like to say that I like feedback now, but I think a better statement is I've become far more comfortable with receiving feedback and with giving feedback in a constructive way. If an individual is not comfortable with receiving feedback, then the feedback that they give when they have the opportunity is going to live in that same level of uncomfortability. It all comes down to how you talk about yourself. We have self talk that goes on all day long, every single day. And what you are thinking about yourself is you are measuring yourself against the situations in your life. Are you saying, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this situation? Am I going to make it another month for whatever situation you find yourself in? Or are you saying that God doesn't make any junk? I was made for a time such as this. Are you looking at things on a daily basis, or are you trying to digest everything on a monthly and an annual basis? And please don't misunderstand me. You've got to have dreams, goals, and plans, but the foundation of that is the self-talk as to what you really believe about yourself. So when you get that self-talk straight and you are saying positive, encouraging things, affirmations, quoting scripture to yourself, whatever way you are subscribing to get that positive into yourself, that constructive growth into yourself, then when you receive feedback, you will be able to handle the constructive criticism. Hopefully, it's constructive at least, in a far more positive way. And when you give feedback to others, the words that you choose, you will know that they make an impact on the individual you are speaking to, because the words that you have spoken to yourself have made an impact. And you will then look to, how can I speak something that will produce success in this individual and not just tear them down? I want them to think, but I want them to come out of this with a vision and a future.
That's great. And I think, we say something similar at Take Flight Learning, which is, are you making this person to be the best version of themselves, or the best version of yourself? And I think it's important to distinguish that, because especially if you haven't taken the time to make your own self, especially self-talk, Sean, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. Self-talk
Yeah,
is
you're
so
fine.
important. Yeah. And I've just recently really understood that myself, because for the longest time, I've had such a negative narrative in my own head that it just sounds like me, versus understanding that you have this choice. You can divert, you can actually believe in yourself. And I mean, how's the old proverb go? As a man thinketh. It's
Yeah,
what you think is, it's kind of almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You're
exactly.
you have Yeah. So, well, let me ask you this, because that was excellent. Thank you for sharing. When it comes to your book, Proverbs for Leadership, and you've already given us some pretty good hints into this direction we're going, and there it is right there. And also, I'm going to put this up now, but I want to encourage anybody at the end of this live, here in 5 minutes or so, we are going to have this link scrolling across the screen. And if you'll go to that link, that's bit.ly.litvak leads. You're going to be able to connect with Sean. You'll be able to go to Amazon where that Kindle edition of that book is, and you can switch editions if you'd like. You can also connect with me and visit my website as well. But at the very top two is going to be Sean and his book. So definitely check that out. I'll put this back up whenever it happens. So Sean, last kind of big topic. When it comes to, I want to focus in kind of on coaches here. Executive coaches, business coaches, life coaches, PQ coaches, EQ coaches. I think what is something that all of these types of coaches can pull from your book to kind of level up their own tool? What would you say how your book does that?
I would say that also get the book by going to proverbsforleadership.com. They can get a paper copy of it that I'll sign and send out to them. You can get it at Amazon also, but if you want a signed copy, just go to proverbsforleadership.com. I would say what coaches can get out of this, because, I've had a coach in the past, really in the not so distant past, and I interviewed a number of coaches before I ended up engaging with the coach that I worked with. And I would say the number one thing that coaches need to understand is that expectations are just for that individual. And what the job of a coach should be is not to dash expectations, not to build up expectations, but to coach an individual in a way to get that individual to have a realization about the expectations that they have for themselves, whether that is a realization of that they are trying to do too much, which was what I discovered. I was trying to do more in a day than there was in a day, trying to do more in a week than there was time in a week. When I sat down to assign time to each task that I wanted to perform, it'd be great if I didn't sleep, but I needed to be able to sleep. And at the same time, that's one end of the spectrum or the ditch that people can fall into. The other side is coaching people to elevate their expectations. There is an entire slice of society right now that has mediocre expectations about themselves, or even has these grandiose plans, but they really are grandiose visions, but they don't have a plan as to how to implement it. I see the job of a coach is to be a sounding board, a reflection, not someone that's going to tell you what to do, but someone that's going to listen to you and get you to talk and engage and write out plans yourself.
That's great. So in short, looking for someone who's actually, you want to have somebody in your corner who's actually going to create not just an action plan, but one that is impactful and implementable and tailored to you so that you can be the better you. So I love that, Sean. Thank you so much for sharing with that in particular. And I did fix our little scroll down here at the bottom. You can definitely go to this link, and I'm going to add in Proverbs for Leadership when we're done with this. But if you want a signed copy of this amazing book, go to proverbsforleadership.com. And I'm that, there we go. Now it's scrolling there at the bottom. Absolutely. Well, Sean, it's been fantastic having you today. If you wanted to share one more insight, I invite you to do that. You've given us some amazing things to think about here, especially when it comes to coachings, or rather teams who have coaches who coach teams, teams without coaches who just have people leaders. I would ask, when it comes to clear communication, clear, concise communication, what is your closing statement and on what you would say about that topic?
Clear and concise communication needs to be spoken from the perspective that the words you are uttering, the words you are speaking, the words that you are directing towards the individual that you are engaged with is going to have an effect on them in so many ways that you do not even know or understand. So make sure those words are courageous. Make sure those words are constructive, and make sure those words point the individual into actionable steps as to how they can improve their situation in the way they want to improve it, plus 10%.
I like that. Plus 10%. That's great. That's great. I need to write that down. Where's my pen at? It reminds me of Atomic Habits, the book that James Clear wrote, where he's like 1% better every day. It's different, but I like this. It's like, do everything you can to make this happen plus 10%. And then
Absolutely.
the effects you're having on this individual, expect to be having these positive, almost, I get the feeling from you, life-giving effects that are building people up, not tearing them down
Well,
in your coaching.
And I would say to you, because I don't want this broadcast to end without specifically bringing this up, that if you are not a person of faith, or you don't see yourself as a person of faith, let me tell you right now, you are a person of faith. It's just a question of, what do you have faith in? Is it faith in the environmental movement? Is it faith in the political movement? Or is it faith in God? I would encourage you to explore your supernatural faith life. From my perspective, I'd like to see you invite Jesus into your life as Lord and Savior. My book is very much a book of how-tos and experiences, but throughout the book, I have woven in scripture that gives you the foundations of that initial truth that we were first talking about today, Stephen. And I will tell everyone watching this, listening to this on replay as they're walking their dog or whatever they're doing, because I listen to things like this while I'm walking Solomon the Golden. I will tell you, life is so much more peaceful when you have that supernatural element of God in your life, and you are a follower of Jesus Christ.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for that. I commend your faith on here, and I want to agree that no matter what you believe, and no matter where this comes from, the concept of faith is a powerful one, and you're probably putting your faith somewhere. And what Sean is also saying here is, if you have no faith in yourself, it doesn't have to be that way too. And I'm not saying that's Sean's message. Sean's message is very much about Jesus here and about everything else that goes with that. But if I could speak to everybody here from a secular and non-secular perspective, it is possible to have faith in yourself. And there's an amazing, great amount of things that you can do whenever that happens. Coming from somebody who's had no faith for a long time, and it really changes things. So, Sean, and we had a couple comments here. Oh, hey, Cindy. Cindy's awesome. Atomic Habits book principle. Absolutely. And Keela, love this. Awesome. Meeting people where they are and pointing each person forward. Okay, Sean, this is kind of a question. Do you think that extra 10% can be easier if you know someone's personality style? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to understand people's personality style. I know that your heavy emphasis, Stephen, is with DISC, and I've studied DISC for years and years. There's also Myers-Briggs, which I've done some study of. There's Enneagram, which I know nothing about. And then there's the classic type A, type B. So understanding someone's personality style makes a huge difference, but that doesn't mean a personality style doesn't mean that someone doesn't have dreams and goals. They may just plan and put the steps in place in a different way.
Absolutely. And one thing I'll add here just is 100% compliment to that, Sean. And I was just chatting with my friend who's an executive coach on this weekend about this. Is I thought for a long time I couldn't have goals. I didn't know how to set them. I just wasn't a goal person. Turns out my personality style is a little bit backwards, and I like to start with the goal and then build backwards. A lot of people build forwards. It doesn't matter. It's a different perspective. It's very important for all of us, like you said, Sean, to have those goals and to put a lot of faith in them. So, Sean, this has been great. This has been super insightful for me. Thank you so much for coming on. I want
My pleasure.
It's been my pleasure, even more so. Before we close out here again, check out what's scrolling at the bottom. You can get Sean's book, as well as connect with Sean. I want to encourage you, go to proverbsforleadership.com. If you're going to buy a book, which I'm going to, get a signed copy from Sean himself. That way you can display it in the back. I'm going to add it to my bookshelf here. So, Sean, anything else you want to close with before we wrap up here?
No, this has just been a tremendous opportunity. I really appreciate you exposing me to your audience. And, now is your time, regardless of what your age is, what your background is. Now is your time. Find that person that can be your sounding board and think about and engage with what are you reading, what are you watching, and what are you listening to. I'm not saying cut all entertainment from your life, but there's going to be some things you need to get rid of to fill yourself up with those things that will produce.
Agreed. I know the first thing I had to do was cut off all of my news for a while because doom scrolling is a real thing. So,
yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Sean. Well, with that, we're going to close up here, everybody. Again, check out Sean. Check out the link that I had scrolling there at the bottom multiple times. Connect with him here on LinkedIn. He's fantastic. And I hope you join us next time at the next episode of the Executive Mindset Master Series. Thank you all so much for joining, Sean. We'll talk to you later.
You have a great day.